Bacteria, unlike a bacteria is a living organism. It actually processes energy. It actually eats things. It actually builds structures within itself using its own power. Bacteria, in their form, are very much like our little friend here in the diagram. The DNA is kind of this jumbled mass of stringy stuff floating in the cytoplasm. Floating around in it are various ribosomes that take messenger RNA and turn it into proteins. A few other little bits and pieces, but basically what it comes down to is bacteria are prokaryotes. They have no membrane-bound organelles within them. They only have non-membrane-bound organelles, and not many of those. Basically speaking, we have here, you can see the little green on the inside is kind of the cell membrane. So that membrane that goes around the cell that lets things in or lets things out, that selectively permeable membrane, that is there in the interior. Next, you see that sort of yellow part. That yellow part would be a cell wall. The cell wall holds the bacteria in a particular shape. It's like a plant cell wall, except made of slightly different stuff. And what it does, as I said, it keeps the bacteria in a particular shape and gives it some protection. This particular bacteria has another membrane around the outside of the cell wall. That membrane is something that some bacteria have that protect them from penicillin-like antibiotics. This particular bacteria has a flagellum out the back, which is basically a long string of protein, actin, that it will spin around in order to give propulsion. Also, it has some pili, which are basically those looking hair-like green-looking things on the other end of the bacteria. Sometimes those move to actually move a bacteria along. Sometimes they're used to attach to a surface. But basically speaking, any bacteria is going to be very simple on the inside. It's not going to have a nucleus. It's going to instead have the DNA just kind of floating about in there. And it's going to have this very simple structure to it. What bacteria want to do, of course, is they want to get in someplace. They want to feed in that area and to grow and then reproduce by binary fission, which means they just kind of split into two bacteria. So one bacteria splits into two, and so on and so on and so on. The outer membrane outside the cell, as seen in this one, this is an E. coli, which is kind of forming the model for the previous diagram. Basically, there is an outer membrane outside the cell wall. It's a feature of some bacteria. It gives them extra protection against attack by those forces that would seek to destroy it. Usually when a bacteria inhabits a body, inhabits an organism, that organism tries to fight it off, and this protects it from some of those attacks. The actual cell wall underneath that membrane, but on the outside of the cell membrane, it protects the bacteria from damage and gives it shape. Bacteria generally come in three primary shapes. Within the bacteria, we talked about the ribosome. Ribosomes function the way they function in a eukaryote. In a eukaryote, the ribosomes are where the messenger RNA gets hooked up to the ribosome, and using the code in the messenger RNA, the ribosome creates a protein. Well, those also exist in bacteria. They're not stuck on the endoplasmic reticulum as they are in eukaryotes. Instead, they're free-floating, but they still do the same thing. Another thing all bacteria have DNA. It functions in the same manner as it does in eukaryotes. The DNA carries a code of nitrogenous bases. Those bases form the code for making the proteins that actually give the structure, function, commands, etc. to the bacteria. So just as the DNA is the blueprint of eukaryotes, DNA is also the blueprint of bacteria. So same thing, different organism.